I think the piece that a lot of agencies miss in delivering reporting, especially in automotive, is that a 20-page report will not do. That's too much. And that's true 80% of the time.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a Ninja Cat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Whit Norrad is the director of demand generation at Flex Dealer, a creative advertising agency that breathes life into dealership marketing. With experience in varying industries and verticals and more than a few business degrees, Whit brings a suite of skills and savvy to any marketing conversation, particularly on Twitter, connecting her diverse background to spicy takes and solid advice. Whit, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just jump into it. Every marketing team has pain points and challenges that are unique to their industry. What are some of the pain points you see in automotive?
So we deal specifically with car dealerships most of the time. So a brick and mortar business where there isn't a one-to-one map between, say, something like shoes. You place an ad for a shoe, somebody sees it, they buy it, they don't. It's pretty cut and dry. The same can't be said for vehicles. The average purchase time is 72, 73 days. Google made that stat a couple of years ago. And I do think it's probably gotten a little bit longer in transparency. But the biggest thing that we kind of see as a hurdle is that there is no one-to-one connection or attribution model that really caters to the work that we do, which becomes a little bit intangible sometimes for very tangible business people.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And so also thinking about dealerships, is there, so speaking towards that point of not having a direct attribution model, what are some of the ways that you guys are sort of attributing? Because I see tons of dealership ads everywhere, definitely buying a lot of advertising real estate. How do you guys make sense of that ROI if you're not going to see it, for 72 days?
Yeah, it's a unique model. There have been different ways that we've approached it. So one where we've installed things like call tracking numbers at every single juncture that people could be interacting with. And the same applies to different form fills and automations and all of those pieces. So you're able to get pretty close. And then sometimes what we'll also do is go into a CRM of a dealership and match, whether it's through Data Studio, manual entry, what have you, match that end customer data to an existing list of phone numbers, names, email addresses. And that gets you a reasonable amount of the way there. The only time that sort of has a little bit of an outlier is, say, for instance, a couple purchases a vehicle together. And one of them did all the research. One of them interacted with the blog, things like that. But then maybe the other has better credit or something like that. Then you break that chain a little bit. In terms of true one-to-one attribution. So it comes down to a lot of education on our part of what is the purpose of this placement? What are we actually trying to achieve with using this medium? And then going from there.
So digital marketing, specifically in automotive, what are some areas of concern you see from dealing with the dealerships? I mean, I guess you sort of outlined attribution is one of them. What are some other areas that are sort of creating concern or barriers for you?
Not just exclusive to automotive in any way whatsoever, but oftentimes we see business owners that are pursuing marketing services, agency services, but then are looking to just have a sort of a single end goal. So it's, hey, we just want leads. We want more leads. And that isn't a well-rounded approach. Yes, you want leads, but how are you going to get the next round of leads if people don't know about you, if people don't trust your brand, know what you stand for, know how you're different? So we do deal with other verticals, not just automotive, where it is our primary vertical, but we see that across the board where people don't tend to pay attention to brand in the way that they should, pay attention to the long-term awareness metrics that they need to be concerned about as well.
And so what's that conversation like when you're talking about you want the leads today? What are you doing to make it happen tomorrow? Are they hard pressed, or are you able to help them kind of generate those branding plays? Or just kind of speak towards that long-term, short-term window and how you help fill that gap.
Yep. So in our seat, obviously getting those leads has to happen, or
Right.
we won't continue to have the customer, and that makes sense. That's okay. But the flip side of that is once we start achieving that lead gen, then at that point it becomes a matter of either increasing budget to work on these other plays or increasing the avenues that we're using. So whether we're opening up different channels to facilitate this, that piece doesn't so much matter, but it becomes a point of, okay, we've done this. Now that you're getting the thing that you want, we're going to do the thing that you need.
Have you ever experienced it where somebody was hard on the branding thing in the front end where they knew that they needed that, or is that sort of that just doesn't happen?
That would be a dream come true. Honestly, we don't. I wish I were faced with this problem all the time. It would be a much better conversation to have, and I'm sure a lot of that is just the average demographic of who owns a car dealership.
Right.
And there are a lot of, ironically, not super lead driven plays. Like a lot of car dealerships still do radio, regardless of how I feel about radio, still do newspaper placements, still do physical little mailers with goats on them. And I'm not joking about the goats. It really happens. So I wish that we had somebody come and say, hey, let's go hard on brand. Sometimes you'll get people who are very particular about the way that the brand is presented. And I appreciate that. You know who you are, you know what you stand for.
Right.
Whereas you can approach a conversation or an onboarding call and say, hey, give me the elevator pitch. Why would I work with you? And it's crickets. So you have a massive business and you don't know why I should give you mine. So it really becomes a matter of teasing out those things, because we see too a lot of dealerships, and this is true for businesses as a whole, the things that they do every day are just things that they do every day, and they might not realize that that's unique. So an example would be, I recently bought an RV, and the place that we purchased the RV through, we were comparing two different dealers, and one of them midway through the sales process said, yeah, don't worry. When we deliver the RV to you, we're going to take like 2 hours and walk you through all the stuff you need to do. And I'm like, good, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I can make s'mores, I can drive the truck, but everything else, I don't know what I'm doing. And so the fact that they would do that at no extra fee, that was a huge, unique point for them. And that's why we picked them over another place. But to them, that really wasn't anything special. That wasn't something that they served up as a way to get me to buy. It was just what they do. So there's a lot of times where the little pieces of the process are a big deal, but because people are so used to them, they don't see it as a point of unique value.
God, that's fantastic. Now, I want to go back to something you were saying. Once the lead gen is handled, then you go for branding. How do you slice up that budget? Is it only once they see this immediate thing and then they have budget for branding? Do you see dealerships, because if they are buying radio ads, which aren't necessarily cheap, newspaper placements, direct mailers, they have a marketing budget. They're using the budget. How do you get them to sort of divide that up appropriately? Or, I mean, I guess I don't know if that's necessarily a question, but I guess they have the money.
I get where you're going.
Okay,
How does it happen? So there's no cut and dry answer. It's really different for every client that we work with. So sometimes it means you have a set budget and you need to move it around between different platforms, between different efforts. And then in other instances, it's okay, we've done this, we're going to do more. We're going to increase the budget. But that really depends on the individual client. And I'd also like to tie into that ideally we would want to do both the entire time. That's not always possible, depending on each business's budget, goals, stubbornness, all the little pieces. So,
So I guess it leads perfectly into this next question about analytics. What role do analytics play in automotive marketing? You're tracking that stuff. You're doing the connecting a lot of maybe light engagement to direct sales in a CRM. How do you use analytics in this space?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think where a lot of businesses, especially when you're doing digital efforts, there is that one-to-one piece. It makes it a little bit easier. But when it comes to automotive, generally the insights that we find the most helpful are the tried and true pieces that really don't change that much, like pandemic, no pandemic, inventory, no inventory, supply chain, doesn't matter. The tried and true things of what's working, what channels are bringing people here. You could be investing, $5,000 in Facebook, $5,000 in Google ads, but they're both bringing you different amounts of traffic, which that's a tell in itself. But then at the same time, what is the goal of each of those traffic numbers? So if we have one that's converting really well, that's great. If the other one's giving us way more traffic as a whole, that's also great. So do we need to pivot? Maybe not. It becomes a matter of understanding what the goal is in the advertising that we're running.
Mm-hmm. And do you find it difficult to take a dashboard and do you see maybe some of your clients get a little overwhelmed with all of the analytics, or do you see that they're very shrewd with things? How do you help parse that information and turn it into like actionable steps?
Yeah, super good question. I think the piece that a lot of agencies miss in delivering reporting, especially in automotive, is that a 20-page report will not do. That's too much. And that's true 80% of the time. So what we do is we take the primary metrics that we have historically deemed valuable, and some of that will be changing. As I'm sure you know, and a lot of your audience will. Google Analytics 4 it's here, it's happening. And at Flex, we're one of the founding members of the GA4 Standards Council, specifically nice. For automotive.
Oh, cool.
So what that will do is actually allow us to assign different events, different functions, and different tracking that puts everybody on the same playing field. So you're not comparing different sets of metrics between different vendors, and you're not locked just to a vendor report. So it's evening the playing field. It doesn't matter if you're in a small town, a big urban center, everything's consistent. So you're actually able to compare performance, actually able to scale performance. And then when it comes to actually taking data and reviewing it with clients, that's very much a custom effort on our end. So every month the dealer does get a report. Those that are interested have the ability to say what metrics matter to them, and we build a custom report for them. And then if they don't, we use standardized metrics that we have aligned with their goals. But the piece that matters, I would say more than anything, is making sure that you take the time to have a human to human conversation about what it means. Because you can have a red arrow going down, but the context of that red arrow going down matters more than the number. So what does this mean? And then what are we doing with it?
Woo! Now, here's a question. Why is it so easy to create a deck with a whole bunch of information? Just speaking, marketer to marketer, why do we do that? Why do we do that to ourselves? Because I've done it before and I was like, oh, this thing's chock-a-block full of numbers.
There's too much. Yeah, I wish I had an answer to that. We have our own technology. So a lot of the work that we do, it's on our tech. It's not like we're skinning something else.
Mm-hmm.
So reporting is pretty easy, but then sometimes we also work with clients. A RAM dealer has to have a specific website provider. Unless they're really fun and they want to break the rules and they're my favorite and they'll come over. But in that example, we will get the reports from their website provider. And I did one a couple months ago, and it was a 41-page report. And not only was it a 41-page report where some of the stuff was specific to that dealership, most of it wasn't. It was just a big list of all the stuff they did in their tech, which really wasn't that exciting, and actually was probably a couple of years behind it being exciting back then. But yeah, I wish I knew. I don't know if people feel like it proves that something is happening, that there's motion there, but in my opinion, it makes people's eyes gloss over.
Absolutely. But it makes the marketer that's sending that dashboard feel good. Like, I think it's not so much about the client, it's more about you. Would you say that I'm right there? You're just saying, hey, I gave you everything, you know?
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah, maybe it's hard not living in that type of ecosystem to relate to that, but yeah, I could see it. Here's a big list of all the things we did, as opposed to here's the value we brought you.
Woo, splap. Um, you said something interesting too about specific brands of vehicles demanding certain advertising parameters. How are dealerships navigating that stuff? Sort of being outside, it seems like a car dealership is a car dealership. What's your experience there? If you can just wrap on that about, you said a Ram dealer, needs something specific. Is Volkswagen need something specific? Does a Ford dealership need something specific? Do they have certain, parameters that they're demanding from their advertising and the return on that?
In short, yes, most of them do.
Hmm.
Do you have about 17 hours
Oh
that
God,
I could
no.
just
I mean,
ramble? Okay, darn.
no, 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 no. But it's kind of an interesting thing because you think just selling cars is just selling cars, but no, no, no.
Yeah. So at face value, the biggest thing where you couldn't say, "Oh, we're gonna just build a little WordPress website, we're gonna build a little Squarespace website," doesn't work. And the primary reason for that is vehicle inventory
Hmm.
is really complex.
Hmm.
So every vehicle has a VIN number, which then you need to have your tech take that and say, "What does this mean? It has all these features. It's this color." Which is a whole thing in itself. And then when you get down to brands with OEMs, it's right now we're seeing a lot more pushback from individual dealers against their OEM. And that's not necessarily a bad thing or not necessarily a good thing, but it needs to happen. So depending on if you're a Toyota dealer versus a Ram dealer, the rules are different. So in an ideal world, Toyota Canada does an incredible job at kind of giving dealers their cake and letting them eat it too, because they say, here's the things that you need to do them your way. So then they still are able to have their actual local dealership brand and they're meeting the markers that Toyota wants. So it's not as if you're going to have some, strange, weird font and then your ads are bright purple. I mean, they technically wouldn't approve it, but you could do it. So in order to get, a lot of brands have co-op reimbursement. So if you've spent $5,000 on marketing, we'll give you 50% back, provided you do these things. And depending on what OEM it is, really depends on if you should do it at all. Because sometimes the way that they want ads run is you're throwing money in the toilet. But then in other instances, it's sort of free money to run marketing.
So let's move on. Let's talk about stories. Do you have a Cinderella story about working with an automotive client that got everything right and they went to the ball and had a great time? And then conversely, do you have a horror story about things going really wrong?
I think we have a lot of Cinderella stories. We have a soft spot for kind of small town dealerships. It's just we've been a family business for 25 years, so maybe that's part of why. So my Cinderella story would probably be a independent dealer. They're not tied to a brand. They sell used cars in my hometown, which I'm 18 hours away from at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to us when they had this tiny broken WordPress website that some guy, no joke, in his garage built, and it couldn't really do a lot. Maybe it did when they first started, but it doesn't when they had 6 cars, but it kept breaking. So we partnered with them to actually at first run ads and do content marketing. And that escalated into them coming on to our tech. And they have gone from 6 vehicles in inventory to 20 to 30 to 60 to a new building to running a ton of ad campaigns to increasing the quality of their inventory. So, as a business grows, they're able to get more credit to buy better inventory and all of these things. And that's happened over the course of, at this point, 6-7 years.
Wow.
Which is fast, especially where they're located,
right?
And as an industry comparison as a whole. And it was a matter of stacking pieces on one by one. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like they just came in and they said, "Hey, we've got 10 grand for a retainer, let's go." It was, we're going to build a site, then we're going to promote the site, then we're going to make the site have evergreen content. So it grew very organically, and the proof is there every step of the way.
Wow.
So that would probably be my Cinderella story. And
Love
they're
that.
always open to trying cool new stuff. They think of cool new stuff. When I say, hey, I have a kind of weird idea, they go, okay. And
Nice.
it works. It's a partnership. That's the point.
Love that.
So that would probably be the Cinderella story. And then, geez, for something going very wrong, that one's hard. I mean, the point is that we prevent stuff from going wrong. So if I could think of one example, I won't give a location or anything, but we had another independent dealer, and he had a very healthy retainer with us. He had a very healthy ad spend between Facebook, Google, and actually Bing, based on where he was.
Okay.
Was doing the trick.
Okay.
So not so much from a marketing perspective, but from a partnership perspective, the ownership of this business was sort of stuck about 20 years ago in a place of wanting to run the wrong types of super inappropriate ads, and not touchy. I'm not very touchy. I think my haircut gives away that I'm not too touchy. But every single thing was a super inappropriate joke, or, hey, can we run ads to specific segments that's very discriminatory and all these things. And we would say, no, you can't do that. A, we're not going to help you do that. B, Facebook wouldn't let you do that anyways. So eventually we did end up saying, you know what, I don't think our values align and we need to part ways. Here's some other businesses that you could potentially work with. Because we do care a lot about our core values. And maintaining integrity in the work that we do and in the people that we're partnering with. So not so much a matter of things going wrong, but just not having the right fit.
So I'm thinking of a local dealer here in Denver, Dealin' Doug, and he always dresses up as like a superhero. And then Rocky's Autos, they have like this reoccurring theme in their ads. Do you have are those some of your clients that you love working with because they have this consistent, personality? Like, just speaking really quickly about the branding aspect, and not mascots, but maybe like spokespeople, There's a lot of that going on in automotive. What is your thought about that? Is that a leveraging tool? Can that be constricting sometimes?
I'd say a little bit of both, honestly. When you have something that is very unique, it gives people something to anchor onto. You have that brand anchor point of, oh, they remember the guy who gives you a jar of pickles. There is a guy. He's not. I didn't think
you
of
didn't
it. I
pull
wish
that
I did.
out. I'm positive you didn't just pull that out.
Yeah, but somebody did. And there's this. He's an older gentleman. I think he's in Florida or Georgia. I can't remember his name, but he gives you a me-sized jar of pickles when you buy a car, and it works. It works. We have a client that we work with who we've worked with off and on for 10, almost 15 years at this point, who almost anybody in the car world would be familiar with. Louisville Chevy dude. So his name is Mike Davenport. Everybody knows who he is. He works directly with Chev. He's now got his own store, but he was one of the first people in the industry to really leverage YouTube videos. So, and that's his thing. He can use that name. It doesn't matter if Chevy can't tell him not to. And I forget exactly why, but anyways, that's something very specific that he's built a reputation on, just in a perhaps more productive way than the pickle guy. So when you have something unique that people remember, that immediately puts you in their brand set of who they would consider, because they know you exist. Whereas if they don't know you exist, how can they buy from you? A dealer in my hometown, my father is looking for a truck right now. And normally the place that he would go to is a new dealership, and they're out of inventory, and he needs a truck right now. He needs a new truck right now. I'm like, well, go see this guy. He said, oh, but where is he? Well, I know he's there, but you didn't. So you wouldn't even be able to consider him, right? So it's a matter of reaching who you want to reach in a way that works for both of you.
It's an interesting problem, is that you're not sure when somebody wants a new car. Like, you'll know when someone's out of a product. Maybe you can, get access to the Kroger, King Soopers, Safeway, supermarket information and send them coupons or certain things like that. But anybody could maybe want a car, or you're not 100% sure. So it kind of behooves the marketers working in automotive to be a bit broader in their targeting. Would you say?
Yes, as a general rule, yes, because the amount of time that you keep a vehicle is longer than the amount of time you keep a shirt or something like that. Surprise. And then same thing, that purchase it's the second biggest purchase that most people make. Of course, they're going to do research. So in explaining this to potential partners, it becomes a matter of, okay, people are very truly, honestly asking, how many cup holders does this have? Like, that's the stuff they want to know.
Oh,
and
yeah. Hands down.
If they can't find it from you, they're going to find it from somebody else. And the same could be said for an oil change even. So I'm not going to get an oil change until I need one. You can't make me need an oil change.
Right.
But you can make me know who you are for when I do need an oil change. Is yours faster? Do you have a better product? Like, what does that look like? Are you located on the highway to where somebody would be driving to work? Make them remember you so that when they do need that service, you're in the set.
And it goes back to your earlier part about the RV, something that, like that walkthrough that they give you, that nice tour, that's just a daily thing for them. Oil changes for the cars we sell, just a daily thing. Cup holders, they have them. Cars have cup holders.
If you're lucky.
But my mother-in-law was like way into the cup holders. She's like, does it have a cup holder? We're like, Mary, yes.
But Mary might need 4, 5, 6 cup holders. I'm the person with like coffee, protein shake, water. I have all the pieces. So I need an adequate amount of cup holders. Otherwise, I'm just jamming them in the door cup holder where it always spills.
Spills.
Mary gets me, is what I'm really seeing here.
I totally get it. So this has been wonderful. You've really dropped some gems on us, but I want you to kind of cook it all down into a nice sauce of advice. What's your one piece of advice for the audience about marketing within the automotive industry? One piece.
One piece.
The bumper sticker that you would put on your marketing car.
Your customers won't know who you are if you don't know who you are.
Quote bomb.
I got a little teary there for a minute.
I do my best.
Well, what's interesting is that people will then, there's this familiarity fallacy. If you talk about marketing all the time, you think everybody knows about your marketing. So maybe a lot of people think they've already done that work, but you have to share that information with the public at large. That's where advertising comes in. Would you say that?
Absolutely.
Comports?
And they need to be reminded. You can't just run a campaign once and say, we are this. There's a dealer out east, and he's Canada's huggable car dealer. And it's been that way for my entire life. I remember hearing the jingles as a kid, and they give you a life-size teddy bear in every car to signify the hugging thing. But it's burned in your brain. They haven't stopped talking about it. And while I might not think that that's the best USP to have, is that we'll give you a hug. I don't really want people to hug me that I don't know very well.
Touchy, no touchy.
Yeah, but it's there. So, they're trying to say that they're nice. You can deal with them, but whatever that thing for you is, you need to talk about it. You need to make sure that people know about it. People forget. We're goldfish.
Totally.
They need to be reminded, and they need to be reminded in a way that doesn't feel intrusive either. And we're seeing a lot of this too with, I shared something the other day, an article, I can't remember where the article was from. I want to say Bloomberg, about how almost 50% of Gen Zs are looking to TikTok when they're researching products. So they'll go and they'll type in a product and look for reviews and unboxing and all of these things. And then the same could be said, millennials do the same for Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube. And those are all sort of, in a way, dark social channels that people aren't considering in their marketing, but need to be. Otherwise, they'll be forgotten. The same way that there are dealers who only got Facebook 2 years ago. Like the ship's almost gone.
Yeah. I mean, some would say that ship is out to sea.
Yeah. So you want to be priming you want to be priming these other markets, and even not to say that older generations aren't using that product, not what I'm saying at all, but just you need to be aware that there's different ways that people are consuming media. So if you want to be known, you need to be present where your audience is present as well. And when you're a car dealer, most people end up needing a car at some point in time.
Ooh, yes. Oh my God. You're amazing. You just dropped so much science on us. I feel like I'm driving away with a pickle, a jar of pickles, and a teddy bear, and all of that stuff in a brand new car of advice that people can take back to even there. If you're not even working in automotive, all these things track. So you have given us so much amazing advice. If people want to learn more about you and find you online, Whit, where can they do that?
So you can find me at whitnorrad.com, 2 R's unlike the Santa tracker, and flexdealer.com, like flex your muscles, and dealer like car dealership.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
Deal.
Okay, here we go. Cheese or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Bon Jovi or Van Halen?
Van Halen.
Okay. Road trip or airplane?
Road trip.
You got that RV, you got to do it.
True.
Slack or email?
Slack.
Tacos or burritos?
Burritos.
Okay.
That's hard. That was the hardest one.
That was hard. You squeezed that out barely. So the last one, time machine or magic wand?
Magic wand.
What Gets Measured is a Ninja Cat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.